The silence inside Halcyon Technologies' gleaming headquarters lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Every employee froze as security guards stepped toward a quiet facilities engineer carrying a worn toolbox in one hand and an old backpack in the other. His employee badge had already been deactivated. The CEO had fired him without warning, without listening, and without a second thought. What no one in the glass building realized was that a single phone call made just moments later would set off a chain of events that would shake the entire company to its foundation. Before we begin, if you believe kindness is never weakness and everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel, Echoes the Stories. Your support helps us bring more emotional stories like this to life. It was a bright Tuesday morning when 38-year-old Rowan Mercer walked into Halcyon Technologies for what he believed would be another ordinary workday. The sun reflected beautifully against the company's towering glass walls, and the city bustled with life outside. Rowan had worked there for nearly 11 years. Most executives barely knew his name, but everyone who truly mattered inside the building did. Whenever a heating system failed during winter, whenever electrical systems malfunctioned before important meetings, whenever an emergency threatened to stop operations, Rowan was always the first person called. His work rarely earned applause, but it kept the company alive behind the scenes. Outside the office, Rowan carried an even heavier responsibility. Ever since his wife passed away from an aggressive illness 6 years earlier, he had raised his 8-year-old daughter, Isla, completely on his own. Every morning started before sunrise as he prepared breakfast, packed lunches, braided her hair after watching countless online tutorials, and walked her to school before rushing to work. Every evening ended with homework, bedtime stories, and quiet promises that everything would be all right, even on days when he wasn't sure he believed those words himself. Life wasn't easy, but Rowan never complained. That morning, however, everything changed. Halcyon's newly appointed CEO, Vivian Cross, had only been leading the company for 4 months. She was brilliant, ambitious, and determined to increase profits faster than anyone before her. Unfortunately, she believed compassion slowed progress. Employees had become numbers, departments had become expenses, and loyalty had become irrelevant. As Rowan entered the executive floor to repair a climate control failure before an important investor meeting, he accidentally interrupted a tense strategy discussion. Vivian, already frustrated by falling quarterly numbers, turned toward him with visible irritation. Without asking why he was there, without verifying the maintenance request, she publicly accused him of wandering into executive offices without authorization. Rowan calmly tried to explain that he had been called by the building management team, but she refused to listen. In front of senior managers, assistants, and visiting investors, she terminated his employment immediately. Security escorted him toward the lobby while stunned employees watched through the glass walls. Some lowered their eyes in shame. Others wanted to speak but feared losing their own jobs. Rowan never argued. He simply removed his employee badge, placed it gently on the reception desk, thanked the security officers for treating him respectfully, and walked into the warm daylight. Outside the building, he sat quietly on a nearby bench. His hands trembled slightly. Not because he had lost a job. Because he had no idea how he would explain it to Isla. Rent was due in 2 weeks. Her school tuition payment was approaching. She had been saving for a science camp she dreamed of attending. For the first time in years, Rowan allowed himself a few silent tears. After gathering himself, he reached into his pocket and made one phone call. It wasn't to a lawyer. It wasn't to the media. It wasn't even to another employer. He simply called an elderly man named Alden Whitmore. Years earlier, Rowan had volunteered on weekends repairing heating systems and electrical equipment at a community veterans shelter. There he had met Alden, a humble old gentleman everyone believed was simply another retired volunteer. Rowan never asked about his past. He simply treated him with respect. What Rowan never knew was that Alden was the retired founder of Halcyon Technologies. Although he had stepped away from public life, he still owned the company's largest block of voting shares. When Alden answered the phone, Rowan apologized for disturbing him and quietly explained that he would no longer be able to help repair the shelter on Saturdays because he had unexpectedly lost his job. A long silence followed. Alden asked only one question. What happened? Rowan never insulted anyone. He never exaggerated. He simply told the truth. Within hours, confidential calls began spreading across board members, investors, and legal advisors. The founder wanted answers. Inside Halcyon headquarters, Vivian remained unaware that anything unusual was happening. She proudly continued presenting aggressive restructuring plans while celebrating another round of cost reductions. Then the emergency board meeting invitation arrived. Every executive was ordered to attend immediately. When Alden entered the boardroom later that afternoon, many executives stood in surprise. Few had seen him in years. His calm voice filled the room as he asked for Rowan's employment records. The documents revealed 11 consecutive years of exceptional performance, perfect safety reports, hundreds of unpaid overtime hours during emergencies, and dozens of personal thank you letters from employees whose problems Rowan had solved without expecting recognition. Then another report appeared. Vivian had fired him without conducting any investigation, violating multiple company employment policies and exposing Halcyon to serious legal liability. But that wasn't the worst discovery. As board members reviewed recent executive decisions, they uncovered a growing pattern of reckless leadership. Experienced employees had been dismissed to cut short-term expenses. Maintenance budgets had been slashed. Safety inspections had been delayed. Investor confidence had quietly begun slipping months earlier. Rowan's firing had simply exposed a much deeper problem. The board acted quickly. By sunset, Vivian was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Financial analysts noticed the leadership crisis almost immediately. Investors questioned corporate stability, and confidence began falling faster than anyone expected. The empire Vivian had tried so desperately to control had started collapsing under the weight of her own decisions. Meanwhile, Rowan knew nothing about any of it. He spent the afternoon sitting beside Isla in a neighborhood park after picking her up from school. He finally found the courage to tell her that he had lost his job. Instead of crying, Isla smiled gently. She reached into her little backpack and handed him a folded drawing. It showed the two of them standing together beneath a bright blue sky. Across the top she had written, "Home is wherever Dad is." Rowan could no longer hold back his tears. In that simple drawing, he found more strength than any paycheck could ever provide. The following morning, an unfamiliar car stopped outside his modest home. Alden stepped out. He apologized personally for what had happened, even though he wasn't responsible for the decision. Then he offered Rowan something far greater than his old position. The board had unanimously voted to create a new Director of Facilities Integrity role, ensuring that experienced employees would always have a voice in operational decisions. Rowan wasn't chosen because of sympathy. He was chosen because his integrity had already earned the respect of everyone who truly knew him. He accepted on one condition. No employee would ever again be dismissed publicly without being heard. The board agreed immediately. Over the following months, Halcyon slowly rebuilt its damaged reputation. Employee morale improved. Safety standards returned. Investors regained confidence. Most importantly, people once again believed that leadership required humanity as much as intelligence. Rowan never sought revenge. He never celebrated anyone's downfall. He simply continued doing what he had always done, serving others with quiet dignity. Years later, new employees would hear the story of the single father who lost everything in a single morning but gained something far greater because he never allowed bitterness to replace kindness. His greatest success was never the promotion. It was going home every evening knowing his daughter had grown up watching a father who chose character over anger and compassion over revenge. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with your friends and family, leave a comment, and subscribe to Echoes the Stories. Your support encourages us to continue sharing meaningful stories that remind us kindness still matters. Speech balloon special request, comment below with the words, "Kindness always wins," if you believe that treating people with respect can change lives. Sometimes, the strongest people are not the ones who fight the loudest. They are the ones who quietly hold onto their values when the world gives them every reason to let go. And in the end, it is not power, wealth, or titles that define a legacy, but the compassion we show when no one is watching.